computer. Welcome. I am Mark Berkler, and I am very excited today to introduce a brand new friend, Russ McNeil. Russ, hello.
Hello.
And Russ has written a version of the Four Keys, which is very exciting. I want you to tell him about his own life, how he learned the Four Keys to hearing God's voice, the impact it made for him, and then why he decided to go ahead and rewrite it and weave animals in with each of the four keys. So something very unique and very special, and why he decided to make it a free download so that anyone anywhere in the world can have it by just clicking on a button, which we will give you that button before we leave here today. So Russ, welcome. It's so good to have you with us. Tell us a little bit about your life and what brought you to the Four Keys and the impact it's had.
Right. Well, probably a little background be in order here to kind of set the context for the book that we're actually here to talk about. And some years ago, I'm degreed as a software engineer. So I was taught how to talk to computers, not people. And through an interesting set of circumstances, I found myself in a business where I had to engage people I didn't know. And those were not skills I had. I had to learn over a very long period of time some very specific skills, engaging people I don't know at random in random situations, and do it professionally where nobody was awkward, nobody's feeling awkward. And so through a mentor, I realized that those skills were actually very unique, and which I didn't realize because it was just coming out of me. Found out later it was actually the Lord pulling it out of me. But at the time, I thought it was me. And so what came out of that was a book, and that book did very well. And it impressed upon me the need in certain businesses for skills to engage people you don't know in the way that uses what I call wholesome persuasion. You're not talking people into anything, just relating to them in a way where they feel naturally attracted to what it is you're doing or whatever your message is. And so eventually, after that book, the Lord gave me an idea of writing a book called Lessons from the Ark. And he gave me traits and behaviors of animals to use as metaphors, as illustrations for some of the skills I had learned. And I thought I would use it, throw it out as a $1.99 giveaway on Amazon as a little ebook, and it would back promote to my first book. And I get about a week into the writing of that book, and I told my wife, said, Tammy, this is not my idea of a book. The Lord is taking control of this project. Out goes the art book, and then suddenly I'm going to and I didn't know at the time, but I know now after the Four Keys, I was walking in the bedroom. I had just released the art book, and the Lord said, no, that's not the end of the animal book. That's only the beginning. And so now we're about 10 books into using animals to illustrate what I call human connection skills. A lot of it's sales, but a lot of it's like, how do you give appropriate apology? How do you communicate the same language of love that your spouse receives love as? And just a whole host of things. And it really put me in tune with his creation. And I've always been fascinated with animals. I was doing in-depth research. I can remember being 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday studying the mating habits of the strawberry blue jeans frog in Central America and drawing out these very specific details. But the Lord also gave me this really quirky little sense of humor. So when I write, it's very lighthearted, and we take these complex behaviors and traits of animals and we put them in a very simple way to understand. And it does a couple of things. One is it gives the reader an appreciation for creation. And because of that, we're able to more fully celebrate our creator because of the infinite creativity and the majesty with which he built the animal kingdom. And so one purpose of the animals was to glorify God. The other was to make a very unique way to present to the reader some skills, because everybody likes animals. I didn't know that animal could do that. And oh, wow, it shows me how to do this. And next time I'm in a conversation, that's really cool. So that was the mindset I was in. And most of it was business related. And suddenly I find myself laid off as a software engineer. And I think, well, I've been laid off before, no big deal. Several weeks later, I realized the job market is totally different now. And I was getting pretty antsy about it because I represented most of the income coming into our house, or at least I represented it when I was working. That representation is no longer there. And so I was a little antsy about it. And a good friend of mine called me and she said, Russ, have you ever heard of a guy named Mark Berkler? because she knows I'm always listening to preachers and trainers. I'm always trying to grow and expand myself in personal growth. So I said, no, never heard of him. She goes, well, he does a great job with some fantastic videos. And the Holy Spirit told me to gift you with one of his video series. And I said, okay. I said, I never want to be stand in the way of somebody being a blessing. So tell me about it. And she said, well, it's called The 4 Keys to Hearing God's Voice. And I go, I'm interested. So she sends me the information. I pop it in, watching it on my TV, and I get a little ways into it. I'm just so focused and nervous about not having a job, and the job search isn't going the way I want. So I allow myself to get more drawn into the job search, and more time goes on. Russ gets more nervous. Russ says, maybe I need to tune in what the Lord has to say about this. I've been praying about it. What does he have to say about it? Because now I've got this video series. So I dove into the video series that Mark and Patty put together, and with a fervor. And I mean, I was drawing detailed notes, the whole 9 yards. And from the first exercise, when Mark says, okay, here's an exercise, use a little bit I gave you about the keys so far and write a love letter to Jesus and see what you get back. And I did. And he responded immediately. And even now I'm going to tear up. It was so profound. I can't even put it to word. I'm not going to share it because it's too intimate. But I can't even put to words how profoundly it affected me. I would read it over and over, and every time I would just weep. He is so good. Now, I know I can tell from the training, a lot of people don't have that experience when they first start practicing the 4 keys. All I can think is that 2 things. One, I had been praying for a very long time for the Lord to get me out of the way so I could hear his voice. I'd been praying that sincerely. And I think the other factor was the fact that the Lord had a huge purpose at that point in time for me hearing his voice. And I think he overrode the fact I had not practiced. He gave me this fantastic message immediately, and it whet my appetite. So now the engineer in me says, okay, there's no theory here. This is all real stuff. And when I write, when I communicate, I want people to have practical, actionable information that they can go out and use immediately. And that was the taste he gave me through Mark's training, was something that works immediately and it's real. So I dove in and kept practicing, and he was giving me some very interesting messages about the whole job thing. He has not answered that prayer. He has not told me what it's going to be, but he did tell me when I was journaling, you're going to like it, and I'm going to like it, and I'm going to use you in a powerful way. You're going to bring glory to me in ways you never have before. And so he's making all these statements on what he's going to do, but then he says, however, you need more growing. It's not time for you to know what that is yet. I'm not going to tell you right now. Okay, so, and then this is where it really got me, guys, is when I first got laid off, well, my last day of work, my wife sent, we knew it was coming. We had a month warning. My last day of work, my wife, she sends me the little memes every day, encouragement, scriptures, prayers, that sort of thing. She sent, and she normally sends 2 or 3. She sent 9 that day. And I go, that's interesting. I'm in my office, last day of work, read up, and the first one was in Psalms, and was like, trust in the Lord, delight in the Lord, acknowledge him in all your way. And I just started weeping. I go, okay, they know I just had a pacemaker put in. And now I'm in my office and I'm weeping like a baby. I better go out to my car to read the rest of these because they're going to think I'm dying over here. And I go out and read. So I read all 9 of them. 3 of them were the same exact passage from Psalms. And I called her and said, Tammy, you have no idea how this has moved me. And the fact that you sent that 3 times, she goes, what? I said, yeah, this passage in Psalms you sent 3 times. And it talked about trusting the Lord. She goes, I didn't know. She goes, I just said, Lord, show me which ones to send. She goes, I wasn't even reading them. I was just sending them. But he told me to send you extra today. I go, well, 3 were the exact same passage. She goes, I didn't know. So that night we're watching TV. We're watching a movie on a streaming service. And it was a high action movie. There was almost no downtime. There was this one quiet scene. It was in the hospital. And I paused. And I go, Tim, what do you see there? And on the back wall, in the background, in the hospital room, there was a poster and it said, trust the Lord. Okay. I got 3 verses, it's the same verse 3 times, trust. Tonight he says, trust the Lord. It is a random coincidence, and I don't do coincidences. I believe a coincidence will God decides to remain anonymous. He says, trust the Lord. And I said, he's really sending me a message here. Next day, I connected with the guy on LinkedIn because I liked something he posted. Come find he's a pastor in Nigeria. He sends me his WhatsApp phone number, says, he sends me a message and says, greetings in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. He goes, how are you, the family, and the work doing? How did he know about asking about my job? How did he know? So I called him on WhatsApp. 30 minutes later, he's like, dude, tell me what's going on. I said, it's a long story. I don't want you to think I'm complaining. No, share with me. One brother to brother, share me with your burden so I can pray. And I shared with him about the whole trust thing, the job thing, the whole 9 yards. And he's like, yeah, well, here's what the Spirit is telling me. You got to learn to trust him more because he's preparing to put your feet on higher ground. So then I had my first journaling session through Mark's training. And I said I wasn't going to share what he told me, but I'll tell you one thing. As part of his response, he said, trust me, trust me, trust me. He repeated it 3 times, just like the verses I've received. Impacted me in this enormous way. So I dive into the journaling, and he starts telling me all these wonderful things. I go down to the park because I want some quiet time. I thought I'll be in nature. I go down there and I get done journaling. It was a really great session. And afterwards, I'm just enjoying being in the shade and the beautiful oak trees. There's some squirrels bouncing around, and the locusts are going. They're mad with noise. They're so loud. It seems like they're coming everywhere. And I just spontaneously say, Lord, thank you for the locusts. And I wasn't expecting a response. I wasn't journaling, but he answered, and he said, the locusts are praising me. And I broke down all over again. And I journaled about it the next day. I said, thank you for sending that. I said, is there more symbology there? He goes, I know you're interested in Wild Kingdom. I know what that means to you. And I know how you use it to bring glory to me. And I knew that would relate to you. So he says, I want you to write a booklet about it. And he goes, I want you to do research on how animals praise me, write a book that can give it away for free. So I did and got that done. He says, now, here's another one. And he goes, I want you to write a book about the 4 keys. The 4 keys you learned from Art. And he was already giving me animals for it, for the animals to use. And so that's a lot of words. I'm not trying to monopolize the conversation. That brings us up to date. So, Mark, I'm inviting you to comment or ask questions.
Okay, well, I love hearing that story. Here is the cover to the book that you wrote, How to Hear the Voice of God. And like you say, you bring animals in to illustrate the points, and you brought in, looks like 3 animals to illustrate the first three of those 4 keys. And this is a book, folks, that is a free download from the website. You can pass it out all the way through. You'll see the book is set up really, really in a fun way, okay? And he does write in a very fun way. I read the whole thing and enjoyed it all the way through. And I enjoyed all the pictures too. So especially if you're a person who loves animals, you're going to really enjoy. Here's key number 1. So why did you pick this particular animal for key number 1? What's the trait about this animal that is the trait of key number 1?
Yeah, there's a lot of symbology with that particular animal, the shoebill. It basically comes down to the way they hunt. They hunt they have some finely honed hunting skills. And when we look at those, we see a tremendous amount of symbology as to what they have how they represent the first key of hearing God's voice.
Okay, all right. So we go through, and like I say, you're going to see animals all the way through this book, which I think makes it really fun to read. Pictures, it's better than just type and just black and white prints. So I just want to scroll through a bit of this. So here we are, key number 1, find some quiet time, be still, lose the distraction. So what Russ says over and over is, this is a really good brief introduction to the 4 keys to hearing God's voice. And then if you want the rest of the detail, the more of the detail, which you should get, he sends them over to our book, bigger book on 4 keys to hearing God's voice, because we got 300 pages, and I think, Russ, I don't know, you have 50 to 80 pages. I kind of forget exactly how many pages were here.
Yeah, it's about 60 pages.
60 pages. So it's a really nice introduction to the four keys with animals all the way through. Step number two, is this the animal for step number two or no?
It is, yes.
And tell us about this animal and how it represents key number two.
Well, a lot of people realize that the peregrine falcon is a tremendous hunter, and it requires some very finely tuned skills or a sense of vision. But there's something about the way the falcon is designed, the way they're built, the placement of their eyes on the head, and actually the way their eyes work. They can only act clearly in a very specific situation. And so we use that, we describe that, and it makes a beautiful metaphor for the second key of hearing God's voice.
Okay, well, this gives you, folks, this gives you a feel for what the book looks like and how it's written. Okay, fix your eye. There's the four keys. Key number two, fix your eyes on Jesus, look for vision, become seers. So here's key number three. What's this animal and what is a key trait there?
That's the beluga whale, also known as the white whale. A lot of people are familiar with them through SeaWorld and some of the other aquatic aquarium parks. It's really an interesting animal. In fact, in one of my later journaling sessions, I was talking to him about the writing of this book, and I was working on this section at the time, and he told me that the beluga is one of his favorite animals. I thought that was interesting comment that he made. There's a lot to the beluga whale. They're highly loquacious. They talk, if you will, a lot, and they have some very unique things about their anatomy that make them stand out among whales and even among the dolphins. Very, very unique. And there was a certain pod of them in an aquatic aquarium park who discovered a fascinating way to play. And it actually is a fantastic metaphor for the third key. And it was actually the first animal he gave me. And when you read it, I think you'll see just how well of a match it is.
Well, I think I'll just leave with three keys. That'll make them want to come and read to see what the fourth key is and how it's illustrated. But folks, that gives you an example of how this book is written. It's very attractive, very fun, and free. So send it to download it, read it yourself, send it to all your friends all over the world, especially those who love animals. And it's a great way to introduce them to the four keys hearing God's voice, and then to encourage them to take a step further and get the full 10 hours of training and get a full 300-page book. But it gets them started using the four keys. And Russ, I am so glad that you're using the four keys. I'm so glad it's made a difference in your life. Is there anything else you would like to share with us all before we kind of sign off today? Because I want to give you the chance to share whatever's on your heart.
Just encourage people to get it, not because I wrote it, but because the Lord had me write it the way I write under his direction. And I can't claim every single word comes from him, but I will tell you a lot of the word choices, the pictures, the quotes, a lot of that is direct inspiration. It's free, and I prefer the word complimentary, but they mean the same thing. You don't have to pay for it. It's complimentary because the Lord told me very explicitly it's going to be free. Now, I have the freedom to charge for a full color printed version if somebody wants it, but the PDF is forever going to remain free. We're very explicit about that on the copyright page and how that's put together. There's actually 3 in the series. 2 of them are written. It's a series. He gave me the name. It's called Critters for Christ. And the one we're discussing is actually the third one. The second one is do animals praise God? And a lot of believers say, oh yeah, sure. Obviously the animals praise God. But do you know why? And so what we do is we go through a very unique story. It's nowhere near as long. It's only like 20 pages, but it's a very unexpected story. And when you first start reading, you're going, how does this have to do with animals praising God? It all ties together at the end. And then the number 1 in the series I'm still working on now is Where'd All the Sheep Come From? and we dive into details and talk about sheep and lambs and because the subtitle is their astonishing significance within the Bible. And there's some really interesting things about not about sheep per se, but about the what they represent and why the Bible represents them the way they do. In the 23rd Psalm is so rich with culture and specifics about herding sheep that a lot of people in the Western world have no idea of. So we're going to dive into that, and I think readers will really appreciate the symbology there as well. So those are all going to be free. There's going to be some other stuff coming along where I use I think it's going to be called Ask the Animals, and it's going to be a full-blown print book where we take a whole set of a wide range of animals, maybe up to 40, like the other books do, and we just illustrate biblical principles through traits and behaviors of animals. And so he's got a lot in store for me. He's given me more content. I jokingly say I'll have to take a laptop to heaven to get it all written because he just pours it in, and it's a joy to write for him, I'll tell you.
I understand that. Maybe I'll take a laptop. As long as we're able to take laptops, I might take mine with me too. Okay,
Let's make sure we can spend time so we can share chargers.
so did you say that there's going to be a hard copy version that people can purchase if they want to also then? Is it of this book?
Yeah, of the Four Keys book, there is, yes.
There is. Okay.
It's going to be full color. That's what makes it unique, is it's full color,
Right.
and it's small enough to make that economically feasible.
Great. So do you have a link to your website, which we can both place here, but you can say it out loud right now so if they can go and access all your books. Do you have a website which has them all?
Sure, it's ahauniversity.com, and there's links to it within the PDF as well.
Okay, so if they get the PDF, they're going to have links to go over to your website and see all 10 of your books. And
that's correct. Yes,
excellent.
the print book of the keys is not available yet. I'm waiting for the proof to arrive to make sure it's of the right quality. You know, since I write for the Lord, I'm absolutely adamant that everything has to be first-rate quality, and so I won't put anything out until it's made final proof.
Well, that sounds great, and I'm glad it's going to be available soon, and I'm glad we can make both available to our listeners. They can have a free electronic copy, or they'll be able to shortly get they can buy a copy and gift it to somebody for a Christmas present or a birthday present or whatever. So that's good too.
Yeah, that's exactly what my wife and I are going to do this year.
Yeah, exactly.
There's no better gift. There's no better gift than to give somebody something that'll teach them to talk to their creator.
Well, I totally agree. And as I read your book, I got grandchildren, and they do journaling, and two-way journaling, and I realized this is something that they would enjoy on their level. It would be inspiring, it would be fun, and so I don't know how. I'm guessing 10 and up could all handle this book. I mean, once you read it yourself, everyone who downloads a free copy, you can decide what age could handle it. But I would think kids 10 years old and up could handle it. And if you can go through the teen years hearing God's voice, everything changes. And I've got 3 grandkids who are doing that. They've gone through their teen years, they're in the process of going through them, and they're journaling. And they love the Lord, they're passionate, they're totally involved in church. I asked my granddaughter, are you still journaling regularly? She said, every night before we go to bed. She said, it's short, but I said, that's okay. God can say an awful lot in 1 or 2 sentences, So yeah,
right.
Let's get this for your kids, get it for your family, make sure everybody's doing two-way journaling. All right, Russ.
Yeah, and Mark, as we close out, I want to tell the audience that my appreciation for what you and Patty put together. I've done training from stage before, and my books are all about training, and not everybody gives everything. They'll hold back because they want you to go buy this or that, or maybe they don't have the skills to communicate fully their message. But none of those are the case with you guys. It was clear to me that you give everything, you hold nothing back, and you also do it very skillfully. So I appreciate you for that. It really drew me in.
Well, that's wonderful, and I'm glad you're drawn in and part of the army, because if we're going to create an army that's going to hear God's voice and change the world, it's got to be done by an army of people, not by one person for sure. So you are now part of that army, Russ, and we congratulate you and celebrate you. Thank you for being a part and coming alongside and helping us spread the 4 keys to hearing God's voice. So Russ, I
Well,
think
thank you for agreeing to do this, because when I first sent the book, or first reached out to you, didn't send the book, but asking if you'd be willing to review it, I had concerns that maybe you thought I'd be encroaching on your territory or something like that. And nothing could be further from the truth. Your spirit was so open, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate that.
and so I went ahead and wrote an introduction, told him how much, told you all how much I love the book. So you'll find my introduction in the book from this point on. So, all right, Russ, God bless you. Thank you for joining us today. I really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
All
Talk to you
right.
later.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.